The Panama Canal, a strip of water that connects two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. The waterway is like America's lifeline. 40% of all containers that pass through it are from the US.
Together, we will take back the Panama Canal from China's influence. Together, with Panama in the lead, we will keep the canal secure and available for all nations.
The tension between the United States and China has found a new stage, the Panama Canal. Considered a vital route for global trade, the canal is back at the center of geopolitical debate, following accusations that Beijing is expanding its influence over the region with the acquiescence of the Panamanian government. Washington claims that American ships are being penalized with exorbitant tolls, and that China's presence poses a direct threat to U.S. sovereignty. It was in this context that Donald Trump delivered one of his most forceful statements: "My administration will take back the Panama Canal." According to him, the waterway was handed over to Panama, not China, and is now being used against America's own interests. If costs aren't reduced, Trump vows to demand full control of the route, framing the issue as a national security priority, not just an economic one. Trump hasn't ruled out using military force to reclaim the Panama Canal, a sensitive topic among Republicans, who for decades have opposed the agreement that transferred control of the waterway to Panama. For Trump, the canal is an American achievement, bought, built, and paid for by the United States. He considers it sovereign U.S. territory and refuses to accept that its profits are being diverted to benefit China. His criticism is blunt. Beijing, he says, uses the canal's tolls as a geo-economic weapon against the U.S. "We gave the canal to Panama, not China, and they've abused it," he stated. For Trump, this betrayal justifies a strong and immediate response. U.S. dissatisfaction with China's presence in the Panama Canal gained a new chapter with a visit by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to the country. The move was seen as a direct message to Beijing and a public reinforcement of Trump's demands for control over the canal. During the trip, Hegseth met with Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino and attended the inauguration of a new U.S.-funded pier at the Vasco Núñez de Balboa naval base. The American military and diplomatic presence underscores the region's strategic weight and signals that Washington is prepared to act to protect its interests. Hegseth was unequivocal during his visit. The U.S. will not allow China or any other power to threaten the Panama Canal's integrity. His warning came with a pointed accusation. Ports at both ends of the canal are controlled by a Hong Kong-based consortium, which, according to Hegseth, gives China a strategic position for surveillance operations on Panamanian soil. Trump has shared this concern for years. For him, China's presence in the ports represents more than economic influence. It's a direct threat to U.S. national security. Hegseth's visit, which included a meeting with Mulino and a stop at a former American naval base, was interpreted as a show of strength. A reminder, Washington is willing to confront Beijing over every inch of that critical route. Following a call between Hegseth and Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino, the U.S. State Department announced an agreement. American warships would be exempt from Panama Canal transit fees. Mulino publicly confirmed the deal, but Hegseth's visit raised the pressure even further. Trump reacted predictably and forcefully. For him, this kind of concession isn't enough. He reiterated that the U.S. should never have given up the canal to Panama and suggested once again that the time has come to take it back. In the president's view, any retreat is a historic mistake. Trump's primary concern has always been clear: preventing China's presence in the Panama Canal. The focus falls on a Hong Kong-based consortium that has held a 25-year lease on the ports at both ends of the waterway. After an audit by the Panamanian government uncovered irregularities, a potential turning point emerged. The Asian consortium announced it would sell its majority stake to BlackRock Inc., which would effectively transfer control of the ports to American interests. If finalized, this move could redefine the region's geostrategic balance and ease some of the pressure from Washington. According to Senator Marco Rubio, Trump sees China's presence in the Panama Canal as a direct violation of the 1999 agreement, guaranteeing the waterway's permanent neutrality. Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino, however, denies any Chinese influence over the canal's operations and has expressed frustration with America's insistence on this point. Even so, Washington holds its ground. For the U.S., China is using its port operations as a tool for intelligence gathering. Analysts suggest that, even without direct confrontation, Beijing already exerts a degree of strategic control further fueling tensions between the powers. Although Panama's government denies the presence of Chinese troops in the canal, Beijing's influence persists through CK Hutchison, a Hong Kong-based company that manages 2 strategic ports at the canal's entrances. For analysts in Washington, this logistical control raises serious security concerns. Ryan Berg, from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, warns that the Chinese company has privileged access to data on every ship passing through the canal. He argues that, even without military conflict, China already wields significant influence in the region, enough for surveillance and strategic advantage. Retaking control of the Panama Canal wouldn't be straightforward. Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino has stated unequivocally, the canal is not for sale. Moreover, international treaties guarantee its permanent neutrality and unrestricted access for all nations. Still, Trump doesn't seem inclined to respect those constraints. In his view, control of the canal is a matter of sovereignty and national security. As commander-in-chief, he could even order military action, an extreme step, but one not absent from his rhetoric. Panama, lacking an army, would have no means to resist a potential U.S. military move. And if Trump did retake the canal, today each ship pays up to $400,000 per transit, a steep cost, compounded by the use of up to 200 million liters of fresh water per crossing. Trump argues that the U.S. shouldn't bear these burdens. By assuming control, he could exempt American ships from fees, reducing logistics costs and shortening trade routes. For Trump, this is more than a historical correction. It's a strategic step to restore U.S. economic dominance in maritime trade. Geographic and economic advantages of the canal for the U.S. The Panama Canal is a strategic shortcut in global trade, especially for the United States. On routes like San Francisco to New York, it can save up to 32 days compared to the journey around the Strait of Magellan. For passenger vessels, the reduction can reach 20 days. Even on routes to South America, such as New York to Iquique or Valparaiso, the canal offers significant time and distance savings, up to 13,000 kilometers and 22 days. With numbers like these, it's no surprise that the U.S. is willing to go to great lengths to maintain or regain control of this global artery. Despite the strategic advantages, experts warn retaking the Panama Canal won't be easy. It could spark political and diplomatic instability and isn't free of consequences for the U.S. Still, some see room for a negotiated solution between Washington and Panama City. The relationship between the two countries runs deep. The U.S. recognized Panama shortly after its separation from Colombia in 1903 and helped solidify its independence. Since then, they've signed major agreements, like the Hai-Bunau-Varilla Treaty, and, decades later, the Moreno Bunker Joint Declaration, even amid periods of political instability in Panama. Over time, Panama strengthened its international standing, leading a robust diplomatic campaign for its sovereignty. The effort culminated in a symbolic milestone, a historic UN Security Council meeting held outside New York, which resulted in a resolution favoring Panama amid U.S. pressure. That moment spurred complex negotiations, leading to the 1974 Taft-Kissinger Agreement, the foundation for the later Torrijos-Carter treaties. Since then, despite occasional tensions, the U.S. has remained one of Panama's key allies in both diplomacy and economic cooperation. The U.S.-Panama partnership is long-standing and strategic. Washington has provided financial and institutional support to ensure Panama's stability, security, and diplomatic alignment. The goal: keep Panama a reliable ally and counter external influences, especially from China. This relationship has been formalized through bilateral investment and trade agreements. The two countries collaborate on issues like public safety and strengthening the rule of law, building an alliance that extends beyond geopolitics and directly impacts Panama's economic and institutional framework. The U.S.-Panama trade agreement eliminated tariff barriers and boosted American investment and exports. Petroleum, aircraft, consumer goods, and agricultural products account for 25% of Panama's imports, and 60% of all food entering the country comes from the United States. Moreover, Panama has become a critical logistics hub for the Western Hemisphere. The canal's 2016 expansion allowed larger vessels to transit, particularly benefiting U.S. East Coast ports. Today, the U.S. is by far the canal's biggest user, accounting for 72% of all transits. In 2022, bilateral trade between the U.S. and Panama reached $12.5 billion, a reflection of their deeply intertwined relationship. The U.S. is the top foreign investor in Panama, with $3.8 billion invested, especially in energy, infrastructure, finance, and trade. The interdependence is mutual. While Americans invest in strategic Panamanian sectors, Panama channels its investments into areas like U.S. real estate and wholesale trade. This economic connection reinforces Washington's influence and highlights what's at stake in any geopolitical dispute over the canal. Despite the long partnership, tensions around the canal threaten to strain U.S.-Panama relations. Analysts who once saw a path to agreement now view the situation as significantly deteriorated. Trump's aggressive stance could push Panama to dig in further. This friction, however, plays into Beijing's hands. A potential clash between Washington and Panama City would open the door for China to expand its influence. If the U.S. oversteps diplomatically, Panama's government might pivot closer to Xi Jinping's regime, further weakening America's position in the region. Trump could still choose a diplomatic route. If he reaches an agreement with Panama, especially on lowering tolls, the U.S. could curb China's influence without resorting to force. This would also ease costs for American maritime trade. But there's another possibility: military escalation. If Trump opts for more aggressive pressure, Panama could respond with sharp diplomatic measures. The risk would be twofold. The U.S. could lose a strategic ally, while China gains ground right in Washington's backyard. For Trump, the real danger lies in deepening ties between Panama and China. Even with heavy tariffs, the U.S. might not be able to halt Beijing's advance. Now, the American president is preparing a new economic blow: a 104% tariff on all Chinese imports. This move follows successive rounds of retaliation. China threatened a 34% tariff on U.S. goods, and Trump countered with an additional 50%, plus an extra 84% surcharge on top of the existing 20%. The dispute has reached a new level, turning Latin America into a strategic battleground in the economic war between the two powers. Against such a complex backdrop, it's no surprise that Trump is prepared to go all in to retake the Panama Canal. At the very least, his goal seems clear: rebalance power in Latin America, contain Beijing's expansion, and restore American influence in a region long considered its own. But the question remains: will this repositioning bring stability or fuel even more tension? Time will tell whether Trump's strategy is seen as a necessary maneuver or a gamble too far. What's your take on this standoff between the U.S., China, and Panama? Do you think Trump should act or negotiate? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And of course, if this kind of analysis helps you understand the behind-the-scenes dynamics of global power, consider giving a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. It supports the continuation of this independent work. See you in the next episode.